Remember these? In this video, I'm going on vacation. He thought I was gonna finish those. No, I have not been on a vacation in, well, like forever. I mean, I don't even remember the last time. And so I decided that I was gonna take the entire month of July off. But I didn't wanna leave you hanging without cool content for the entire month. So it's time for another Craig build. If you remember last year, we had Craig build a piece of furniture, which he had never done before. And I think he did a fantastic job. So this time I decided to take it up a notch, and I designed the piece that he had to build. And I'm just gonna tell you right now, I didn't hold anything back. I gave him a piece of furniture that would be challenging for even a seasoned woodworker. And we're gonna see how he does with it. So without any further ado, make sure you check the links in the video description. Go over to Patreon and sign up because there is a ton of behind the scenes content on this one, because one of the cool things about this build is Craig can ask our patrons for help. So enjoy the video and we'll see if Craig still likes me after this. All right. Craig.
Keep in mind, I've built one piece of furniture in my life.
Here is the picture number one for you to look at. Stop it!
I can't do it.
Looks like this.
Yep.
So here's an above shot. So yeah, it's got a cool kind of round shape. It's gonna look like. And then when it's
that's not
done,
what it looks like.
it's gonna look like this. Like that. So these sides over here are gonna be Tambour. You can do it.
I just have like this knot in my stomach.
You can look at videos, you can look at YouTube. You can only ask me one question. You can call a YouTuber once, and you can ask the patrons as many questions.
I can't have
as
anybody
you need
come
to.
down and help.
Now, as nervous as Craig says he has literally watched me build hundreds of pieces of furniture. So although he hasn't built them himself, I think he's gonna do better than he realizes. I mean, he's already on the right track here. He went to the hardwood center, he got some nice looking black walnut, and he started milling it up. I'm guessing he's gonna start on his top and bottom pieces of the cabinet, because that's kind of what the entire thing has to be built off of, and I don't know where else he would start. It looks like he's got all of his boards milled up pretty nice. Those look good, and it seems like he's marking out for, yes, some dominoes. Now, you don't have to have dominoes in a glue up like this, but I will say they do help with alignment and ensure that you don't have any big ridges or bumps, and it just makes the whole process that much easier. Now that he's got his domino mortises all drilled out, he took the pieces over to the workbenches and he started gluing them together. Oh, yep. Gotta watch out for those hammers, Craig. They'll jump up and bite you. It's nice to see him using the patented glue spreader. He got that one for me. And then he locks everything down in his clamps. So far, so good. Now he's got to have two glued up slabs, one for the top and one from the bottom, and he's done it. But that was the easy part. Now that he's got these two slabs glued up, things are going to get a little more, oh boy. Drum sander? I definitely wouldn't put a slab that big through that little drum sander because, yep, you're probably going to do more damage than you are good. Not to mention that's really old paper in that drum sander and definitely should have been changed out. This piece is not a rectangle. It's more of a pill-shaped piece. So now that he has his top and bottom piece glued up, he's gonna have to cut out that pill shape. So let's watch and see how he does it.
It looks like the wildebeest has grabbed a piece of MDF. He's making some motions with his finger, and then he pulls out the circle jig to cut a nice template.
I gotta say, so far I'm pretty impressed. Craig is right on point with how I probably would have done this. The only difference is, instead of using the circle jig, I probably just would have used the Shaper Origin because you could have got it perfect, but that's neither here nor there. The circle jig is a perfectly acceptable way to do this, and it looks like it's pretty much spot on for the right size. So he starts by using the template to trace out the general shape onto the walnut slab, like so, and then yes, good. He's going to remove some of that excess material. track saw. Nicely done. I mean, it's too big to fit through the bandsaw, so track saw or jigsaw is really the best bet. Now he uses some double-sided tape, and he's gonna hook that template on there, making sure to get it perfectly flush with those edges. Nice. Man, this is kind of fun watching somebody else build a piece of furniture. It's like all the enjoyment of watching the process without any of the work of actually doing it. He's using a flush trim router bit in that little trim router. Looks like it did a very nice job of getting a clean cut. He did one side, and now he flips it over to do the other side. Now he's gonna have to do this 4 times, once on each side of the 2 pieces, and then, oh boy, Vacation Jason's here. Now, unlike the last build where I was completely out of the shop the entire time, not knowing what Craig was doing, this time I was actually around for a good portion of it. I was just on vacation, which means no shoes, no shirt, no problem. At least for me. If Craig starts taking his shoes and shirt off, he's fired. I'm not even joking. Leave your clothes on, Craig. You're working. Now that he's got both of his pill shapes cut out, it looks like he's going to start to lay out the internal cabinet portions. He's got to get this figured out before he starts cutting the grooves and everything for his tambour. So he's taking this big T-square and he's kind of just marking everything out on those pieces, which is pretty much what I would do too.
Hey, welcome to another video where I'm going to show you how I made these sweet tambour side tables. See? Tambour.
You see, this is funny because I did tell him he could watch as many YouTube videos as he wants. I mean, that's how I learned. It's just nice to know he's watching my videos and not that dumb cam guy from Blacktail Studios. So what he's seeing here is me using bushings and another template to cut the groove for my tambour to eventually ride in. So he went back over to the table saw and he's making a completely new template, which is actually not what I would have done. I would have just used my old template and shrank it down. You can easily shrink down a template by whatever size you want by using a series of rabbiting bits and a flush trim bit. That would save on material and a lot of work because you don't have to make a new template. But that's okay, all roads lead to the ocean or something like that. He got his new template made. He's got a bushing in there to offset off the side of that template, and he's using a spiral upcut bit to pull that sawdust out of that groove as he cuts. And he's going down, it looks like 1/8 of an inch at a time. So just making really shallow passes. This is always a good idea because when you're riding along that template with the bushing, you physically have to be holding the router in place. So you don't want to go too deep because if that router takes off on you, well, you're not going to get a very good cut. And you don't want to make a mistake at this point because then you got to go all the way back to the beginning. But wow, look at those. They look fantastic.
Now it's time for the easy part. Or I guess in my mind is the hard part because I have to create the inside structure of this cabinet and I have to attach it to the top and the bottom. I don't quite know the best way to do that. It needs a shelf that goes through the middle, but it also needs a shelf that attaches on the outside here.
$10 says he calls Keith Johnson. Ah,
Oh, hey. I don't know how to connect this.
You want screws?
Sweet, dude. Well, have fun. Talk to you later. Bye.
did you guys catch any of that? Because I sure didn't. I'm not sure what Keith told him, but let's watch and find out. I mean, if it were me, I would just use some dominoes to hook my plywood into the top and bottom, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and I would move on with my life. But I can already tell that is not the route Craig is choosing. It looks like he's going to do some dadoed grooves and then just inset the plywood into those grooves. Those grooves are definitely not wide enough for a full 3/4 inch sheet of ply. So I'm guessing he's going to rabbit. Oh boy, made a little mistake there. That's all right. Just a little filler, it looks like, some glue and sawdust, and he'll be back in business. As I was saying, those grooves are too thin for a full sheet of 3/4 inch ply, so I'm guessing he's going to rabbet out the bottom of the ply so that he can set it down in those grooves. He's got his full perimeter of the cabinet done. Yes, you're going to have 2 sides and a back. And then over to the table saw to cut down some plywood. Sets up a little stop over on the miter saw fence to get repeatable cuts. I love that he's doing this on the miter saw because that's how I do it, because I'm too lazy to pull out the track saw. So either we think the same or he's just watched me do it too many times and I've given him bad habits. All right, so yes, he is definitely cutting a rabbet on the bottom of those sheets of plywood. That will be the correct size for that groove he just cut with the router. Why he's not doing it on the dado saw? Again, because he's like me and he's just lazy. Love it. Oh, and it looks like he even did kind of a blind little mortise with an overlap on that dado, which is smart because the router leaves a rounded profile and you don't want to have to round over that rabbet. Now he's over at the dado saw. Why he didn't just do this the first time? Maybe it's because he didn't want to switch out the blades. So this is actually a rabbet on the back portion of the cabinet. So he's going to use that to tie his 3 pieces together. So he's already cut his 2 side pieces. He put that rabbet on the bottom and that back side. And now he's cutting his full back piece. I really appreciate that he's got all the grain for the plywood running in the same direction. Lots of times people will just switch it up for that back piece because it's longer and change the orientation of the grain. But you can tell he's really thinking this through, which is smart. So he's got that rabbet cut on the top and the bottom, and he's got his side pieces with that rabbet on the top, bottom, and back. And man, it looks like everything is fitting together very nicely. Let's see how this top piece goes on. Beautiful. Now, that is raw plywood, so I assume at some point he's gonna edge band that front edge or do something to it, but we'll just have to wait and find out. Now, I gave him the option to either do cabinet doors in the middle or he could do 2 drawers. Not sure what he's going to do yet. Actually, I am because I already saw the finished piece, but for your sake, I'll just pretend like I don't know. As you can see, he added another dado in the middle of all those pieces for a shelf, and I would take my measurement at the back, not the front, just in case it kind of opens up, but that's okay. Looks like he got it the correct size, and he tapped it in there. Looking good. Now, the Tambour is going to have a shelf inside that cabinet, so that's what he's got to figure out now. And it can't just hang out there in space. It's got to have some way to be supported, but it also can't interfere with the movement of the Tambour. So it looks like he got his measurements for that shelf, and he's going to do this one out of solid walnut as opposed to plywood, which is fine. I mean, you could totally have used plywood for this and then just wrap some edge banding around it, but there's no reason to not use solid wood either. So he's making another template with that circle jig. Again, I would have used the same template as before and just shrunk it down with another rabbeting bit, but that's just me. He's getting his template on his solid piece there, and I wouldn't cut this shape out yet because he's gonna have to do some sort of half lap on his support. Okay, so maybe he's not gonna cut it out yet. That's good. Anyways, it would be a lot harder to cut that half lap with the rounded piece. It'd be easier to do it when it's square. So he cuts the half lap on the support little leg, and then yes, smart guy Craig, cut that half lap before you cut out your circle. See how those pieces fit together? Man, it is almost like he's just a seasoned woodworker. I just am in awe that this is only the second piece of furniture he has ever made. Now that he's got his half laps already cut, he took the piece over to the bandsaw and he cut off all the excess material, and he's gonna hook on that template and cut it to the final shape. And apparently get up on the table and stand on it, because he's probably seen me do that for dramatic effect and for some reason thinks it's necessary. So I'm wondering how he's going to hook that shelf into his cabinet carcass. I would probably just use some screws through that dado he cut because you're never going to see them. And it looks like he's using dominoes for that outside support, which is great. You can see he drew a big plus sign to help him align that domino joiner and plunge it right into his base. Looks like he got those dominoes in the correct place. Now he's going to do another dry fit to see how everything comes together. So he's got those supports in with dominoes on the outside, and he's going to hook on the top. You can see those shelves are just flopping there, though. He hasn't secured those to the cabinet box yet, which makes sense because he's still in the dry fit stage. But I'm guessing right after this he's going to do his glue up. Apparently not. He's going to leave it dry fit, and he's going to start working on his tambour. So he milled down some more walnut. He's cutting it all to rough sizes, and then, oh boy, this is bringing back horrible memories of when I've done tambour, because you have to spend a lot of time just standing at the table saw, cutting strip after strip after strip. And then, once you get all the strips cut, oh, okay, he's going to use the Tambour bit set that I've used before. Now, I will preface this with saying this is not a necessary step when you're making tambour. You could just take your strips, line them all together, and glue it to your canvas backer. The nice thing, however, of doing the Tambour bit set is it kind of creates this little tongue and groove, and it just makes a tighter looking tambour. But again, you wouldn't have to do this. But he took the time to do this to every single one of his pieces, which is great. And now he's taking them over to cut them to length again. Not sure why he didn't just do that the first time. And then, yes, after you get all your pieces cut and you get all your pieces routed on both sides, then you have to add a nice little rabbet to the end of all your pieces so that they can slide in your groove. Or almost slide in your groove. And then once you get them all fit, you have to sand every single piece, and that is a pain. Oh, getting a little snack break there, are we, Craig? When you should be sanding? Ah, I see how it is. Darn it, I knew I should have had more than one kid for times like these. That's like 6 free pairs of hands right there. Walnut from Rubio Monocoat. Alright, so the other thing with the tambour is you have to pre-finish it because you do not want to try and finish that stuff after you get it all glued together in your sheet, especially when you're doing that tambour router bit thing because you got all these little grooves, and it looks like if he's going to pre-finish his tambour slats, he might as well pre-finish all of his cabinet pieces, which is super smart because it makes it a lot easier. And now he's using the shaper. Now, Craig has never used the shaper before, and as you can see, he is on the phone with someone, and that is our friend Sean Kirsch, who works at Shaper. So he's a great guy to call for shaper knowledge. Oh, it looks like he's got a piece of his tambour and he's cutting a little slat in there. Ah, I know what he's doing. He is going to cut this piece of brass and I'm guessing make some sort of pull to hook on the end of his tambour so he can slide it open, which is very smart because you got to have some way to open it up. To tell you the truth, I haven't even ever cut brass on the shaper. I mean, I know that you can do it, but I've never had a project that required it, but look at that. Well done, Craig. And then he's got his little slot, and then, well, it kind of fits. The problem is that brass is squared off, and that hole that he cut is rounded on the end. So in order to get that brass in there, he's going to have to do some work on it. But it looks like he's already moved on to gluing up his tambour. So he's basically making a little jig to hold all those tambour pieces nice and square. And then what you want to do is tape off a perimeter around the edge so that you don't glue your canvas all the way to the edge. This will just make a nicer, clean look once you have all your canvas glued on there. Then he's using some Titebond 3, which he saw in my video, because it's got a little bit longer open time, and this takes a little while to get the glue spread everywhere, because you got to put the glue on the back of the tambour, and you also have to put the glue on the canvas. Now I can see that he is just doing one section of tambour at a time, which is smart. I think he would have had the glue start to dry up if he was trying to do both sections. You get it on there, you smooth it out, and then yes, an iron works great to get all those wrinkles and creases out, make sure it's nice and even. He's got one section done, and now he's moving on to the next section.
I'm gonna make a phone call. Hi. Nope. Hey, remember how we said that I have one question that I gotta ask you? I was wondering if you could come out, and I got a question for you. Could you stand for me?
This is the one question?
This is the only question I had for you. So if you could just do some sanding, that'd be great. I'm gonna go have lunch.
He thinks he's so funny. Yeah, he's not gonna bother to show you the like 5 other times he went against the rule and asked my advice on things. Yeah, Craig, we won't mention those times, all right? We'll just let the people think that you're perfect. I mean, to be fair, that's how I would have edited this video too. Anyways, after forcing me to sand some of his pieces, he got his little half laps glued up, and then it looks like he added just a little round over to his top and bottom piece. And then here, I'm guessing, I was wondering about this, he cut out a section on the back that will allow him to slide his tambour in and out, which is something that you got to do. Either that or you got to glue the whole thing up with the tambour already in there, but with tambour that big, that would be a nightmare. All right, after doing a little more pre-finishing, his canvas glue up is dry, so very carefully he peels back that tape, cuts the canvas to size, and then this part is always so satisfying. This is like the most fun part of doing tambour, is peeling up those tambour panels for the first time, because they're all floppy and bendy and just seem so weird. All right. Now, he's going with the cabinet doors. So he's got to figure out what he's going to do for those. So it looks like he's got some more milled up walnut. He's gluing up into panels. Yep, you can eat it. It's food safe. Or yeah, just wipe it under the work table. I do that all the time. I also wipe my boogers under there. Now, I'm guessing he's gonna do his glue up, right? I mean, he has to. The thing's been dry fit for like 8 days at this point. Okay, so he is using screws through that dado to secure that shelf. And then it looks like he's got a little paste wax. All right, he's waxing up his tambour so it slides smooth. I've used paste wax in the past, that's probably why he's using it. But to be honest, I would probably use like paraffin, something that's not going to have sawdust stick to it as much. But that's okay, paste wax will work. And then finally, we're getting to the glue up. I mean, it's awesome that he pre-finished everything, and to be honest, this is a better way of doing it. I just always glue everything up right at the beginning and then struggle with finishing once I get it all done, but that's just me. Because I'm just always in a hurry, and I want instant gratification. So he's got all of his panels glued in there, he's got the top on, he's got the bottom on, it looks like he's got it well clamped with some cawls. And then what the heck are you doing with a 16 gauge brad nailer? That can't be real. Craig, why didn't you just put some clamps on that back panel? That's the first thing I've seen in this video where I'm like, really? Did you just brad nail that box together? No way. Anyways, he is cutting some door stops. Oh no, he is working on cutting his pieces for his base. I totally forgot about the base. Yeah, this thing's got to sit on something. Oh, so he's getting a little fancy with the footwork, getting a little curve. So he made a little MDF template, And then it looks like he's using a combination of some double stick tape and a flush cut router bit to cut those pieces to the right size. Okay. And then he used some dominoes to hook those pieces together. All right. And oh, I know what he's doing. He's cutting a little groove that he will probably use for some Z fasteners to hook the base to the cabinet box. Smart to think of that ahead of time. So he glued up those first pieces, giving them a little sand, and now he's rounding them over. All right, I probably would have drilled my mortises for my dominoes first because it's always easier to work off of square edges, but that's all right. He's doing it after the fact. Yep, plunging out some mortises to connect the whole base. Wow, that is a lot of connection pieces. Probably overkill. You could probably get rid of 2 of those, but that's okay. Getting it all glued up, and that's a pretty good looking base. Aha. See, I've been wondering about this for a while, what he was going to do here. You could use edge banding. It looks like he's just using some pre-finished strips of solid walnut, which is totally acceptable. Got those glued on there. And now he is back to working on his cabinet doors. So he glued up these panels earlier. He's cutting them down to size, and he's just going to use solid panels of walnut, which is going to look fantastic. He's drilling out holes for his hinges. These have to be some sort of full overlay hinge, probably from Bloom. So he gets one door in, he shims it with cards, which is exactly how I would do, and then he reaches in there, marks out where those hinges have to land. He pre-drills, gets his clips on there, and these doors should fit pretty perfect, which it looks like, yeah. They fit nice and snug. Does the same thing to the other side. Man, the grain on those doors is going to look amazing. I can tell there's some figuring in there. I wonder if that was on purpose or if that's just a happy accident. Looks like he laid out some hardware to open his doors, and then he's got a, yes, called it. He's using probably a 16th inch roundover to add a little rounded profile to those brass pieces he cut out so he can slide them in that slot. I gave him a nice little back rub while he filed them up, and then yeah, see, now that thing fits nice and snug. Problem with brass is it scratches so easy, so you have to sand the crud out of it, which it looks like he did, and then he's just using a little Fixo probably to set that in place. Man, nice tight fit. Those look awesome. See, I never would have thought of that. Oh boy, Vacation Jason's back. To be fair, I didn't know he was filming here, and I was outside mowing our pasture, and he asked me to help him lift this thing onto the ground, so probably should have blurred that out. But I helped him flip it over. He measured to get his base all lined up, made sure it was nice and centered, and then yes, he's using those Z-clip fasteners to hook it to the bottom. Then he flipped it back over. Now, I thought this was really smart. He didn't finish his top until he had it all glued up, because you know that thing's going to get scratched and dinged, so saving that until last was a smart move. Clipped on his cabinet doors. Boy, that grain is something else. And then the most satisfying part, sliding in those Tambour panels. Oh, yes. Man, that looks incredible. You see, Craig was so freaked out by this project when I first presented him with it. And everybody I talked to about what I was having Craig build said, "That is so mean, you're a jerk. He's only built one piece of furniture in his life." But you guys don't know Craig the way I know Craig. He is incredibly talented at absolutely everything he does. And I knew the fact that he's only built one piece of furniture didn't matter, because he has literally watched me build so many pieces, and this guy soaks up knowledge like a flippin' sponge. The whole premise of these videos has been watching somebody who's not a furniture maker make furniture. But we can't really look at it through that lens anymore, because look at this piece. We can no longer say Craig is not a woodworker or Craig doesn't make furniture, because only a woodworker could make a piece this beautiful. Craig, You knocked this one out of the park, buddy.
You know, while Craig's hard at work in the shop building furniture and getting all dirty, I'm out here enjoying vacation. I know what you might be thinking. Jason, how can you go on vacation? Don't you have a business to run? But I have Squarespace, which means that even while I'm out here floating in the river soaking up the sunlight, Squarespace is hard at work making sure that my website remains beautiful. You want to know how? Well, I'll tell you. See, with Squarespace, they have these cool things called inventory alerts. So if the inventory gets depleted to a certain level, like my t-shirts right now, I just click a few buttons, reorder some shirts, restock, and I'm back in business. And I didn't even have to get out of the river. The other nice thing about Squarespace is, let's say I'm floating out here and I bump into another floater and they say, hey man, that's a really sweet Bourbon Moth hat you got there. Can I buy it? Well, I can sell it to them directly through the Squarespace app, taking their credit card, and it updates the quantities on my website automatically because I actually stole this from our inventory. Don't worry, I'll wash it before I ship it out. While I'm out here floating, sometimes I have brilliant business ideas. Like, what if I started a guided floating service? Well, I can create a new website through Squarespace, and I can buy the domain for the website directly through Squarespace. So if I want jasonfloats.com, well, it's easy to do. So here's what you're going to want to do. Go to squarespace.com/bourbonmothwoodworking. Sign up for a free trial, and you're going to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain when you use the coupon code BourbonMothWoodworking. As for me, I'm going to stay right here. I don't think I'm ever going back to the shop. This is too nice. Just click the link in the video description, or you can go to the link that's posted somewhere. I don't care. I'm on vacation.